Welcome to the Sophiatown Jazz Encounters In Conversation series. The first In Conversation was with pianist Paul Hanmer and others involved in the making of the now classic album Trains to Taung on its 20th anniversary. The second is In Conversation with singer and composer Mam Dorothy Masuka. The series aims to uncover the precious memories of South African jazz artists, not as a memorial, but while they're still with us and able to answer today's questions about their music and their music making and their lives. It's a resource for scholars, but also a treasure chest for anybody who loves the music. I'm going to introduce the panel, and after I've done that, we'll actually talk a little about the history, a little about Mam Dorothy's life, and a little about the responses of today's musicians to her life and her music. So I don't need to introduce Mam Dorothy. You all know who she is. She has been a veteran of music in this country, starting when she was, we were talking in the green room there, starting when she was a schoolgirl. On Mam Dorothy's left is Lindelwa Dalumba, who is a music scholar and historian. She has researched this period. She's written on gender in music. She's written on the period of the King Kong artists, the period of the 60s of people leaving. She's going to give us some context of the history around Mam Dorothy. On my right, Titi Luzipo, who is a singer born into an incredibly distinguished musical family. Her grandfather was one of the great leaders of choral music. Her mother was a vocalist with the Soul Jazzmen. I'm sure she has family memories of being a woman singer in those days that have been passed down to her. And on her right, guitarist Bheki Khoza, who is a distinguished musician in terms of what he's done himself, in terms of the people he's worked with. And also he's got a kind of show-busy connection with this place because he's been music director and arranger for both the stage show Sophiatown and the movie Drum, both of which were about this particular hood. So again, we have some very distinguished panelists, and I'm going to start by inviting Lindelwa to talk for a little while about the context in which Mam Dorothy found herself when she started singing and what it was like being a performer and perhaps particularly being a woman performer in those days. Over to you, Lindelwa.
Good evening, everybody. Those of us who are here in this center, in Sophiatown, in something called Trevor Hudson Center, there is a kind of social contract that is already being assumed. So perhaps there are certain things that I don't have to say, and perhaps what should best be done is that I should ask certain questions about what I don't know about the context. Yeah? There's no point me talking about Sophiatown, the drum decade, etc., etc. If you did not know a little bit about this, if you were not inspired to come here to imbibe in this, into a ritual of mutuality, you would not be here. So it would be insulting for me to rehearse those particular narratives. So what I would rather talk about is perhaps to be a snitch from the backstage, to reveal what we spoke about when we were talking in the green room, and what songs came up and what kinds of stories came up. I wasn't there the whole time because I am a smoker, but when I was there, what I did hear was songs that disturbed the status quo, songs that Dorothy Masuka sang that did disturb the status quo, and not the cultural status quo, the official. Because we need to remember that at that time, the Nationalist Party took black music and took jazz far more seriously than certain people have taken it ever since, as a source of entertainment. So, for example, when the apartheid government sent 4 people to look at what King Kong was about. Those 4 musicological spies reported back to the special branch that this apartheid, anti-apartheid musical, King Kong, was very exciting for the natives in the Rand. And of course, we have to know that they did not view this thing in positive terms, because it's not very good when natives are excited. All right? So by the time somebody like Dorothy Masuka sang songs like Umthetho ka Dr. Malan Unzima, the Dr. Malan song, this was not taken lightly by the apartheid government. It was also not taken lightly by those songs that the apartheid government could not hear, nonzokolo, songs about migrancy, whether it was a female migrant or a male migrant. Those songs were not taken lightly. So as we proceed with our conversation this evening, I'd like us to think about those songs that were very, very obvious to the establishment, but those songs that were also cloaked in metaphor. And that metaphor could also, grate itself in gendered ways. What happens to a male migrant? What happens to a female migrant? How do we turn these narratives to be more than Jim comes to Joburg?
Mam Dorothy, if I can start talking to you by saying, what was it that brought you to South Africa, and what was it that magnetized you to the idea of being in showbiz?
I'll tell you something. My life of singing, I didn't decide to be a singer, but singing wanted me to do it. Thank you very much. It's there are people that want to sing, but I was born to sing, so I wouldn't know why, I became a singer.
Okay, you were born to it. It was in you. And what was it? What were the models? What were the stars and the people that you started seeing that made you want to, I believe, run away from your fancy boarding school so that you could go on the boards and perform?
Yeah, because when I came to this country, I was pretty young, very, very young. We lived somewhere around this area, Sophia Town, because at the time, when you think of 1945, 44, there was no Pimville, there was no many other places. This was the place to be, Sophia Town. So I had an aunt who lived here. But being brought up as a Catholic, by the way, I'm Catholic. I was in a boarding school, which was in Rhodesia, and I was sickly at this boarding school in Rhodesia. Then I was sent to this one here in St. Thomas, which was in Johannesburg City. They had to close it because it had a lot of black young women, and the then government didn't like that. But as I say, my singing, then I used to see a lot of, I used to listen to a lot of Louis Jordan, Boogie Woogie, Boo Plate and all that. I liked the way he was doing his thing. And from that, then I used to listen to people like the Manhattan Brothers, the Ink Spots. We had a handful of great performers in this country. And I was very fond of the Ink Spots, the Manhattan Brothers, so much that when they went to Durban, I ran away from school and followed them. And my parents reported and collected me from Durban back to Johannesburg because I was a minor, I was not supposed to. Those days you wouldn't be on stage, you were not to be on stage unless you were 20-something. But if you were less than that, they were not let you be on stage. It's a long story, but to cut it short, I didn't want to sing. Singing wanted me to do it.
What was the first show that you actually got into after your family shrugged their shoulders and said, we might as well let her do it?
It was African Jazz and Variety.
Oh, tell us about
Yeah.
that.
Then there was a Jewish brother who had his mother who was a great performer. She was an actress, Sarah Sylvia. She, her son decided to put black singers together. That's when he got, people like myself, not the Manhattan Brothers, the Woody Woodpeckers, Sechmo Masinga, Dolly Ratebe, Louisa Emmanuel. From Cape Town, we had, what's her name? She was Miss Cape Town, Irene Batchelor. And, all these fabulous singers were all in one basket with this African Jazz and Variety. And we used to do a lot of performing for white audiences only, strictly white. And that used to be in Selborne Hall. And only one day of the week, we were performing for a mixed audience, which was Indians. I don't like calling people coloreds, but, our other brothers and sisters, and the Africans, and the whites as well. But African jazz was really the thing in this town that brought everybody into where everybody is right now.
Titi, what are your reflections on what we've heard from Mam Dorothy? And if you like, what things have been shared with you by your mom about being a singer back in the day?
Firstly, it's amazing because when my mother started telling me stories of, her musical career, there were two people that she always mentioned. That was Mam Dorothy and Umam Kwasho, which is Mam Miriam. And I was particularly touched by one word that she always used when referring to these women, and that was bravery and being fearless. And having researched Mam Mazi, which is Miriam Makeba, and Mam Dorothy, I found a very similar, in an interview, Mam Dorothy says, Miriam still visits me. I miss her and she still visits me. And she says, I think the person who was interviewing, kind of gave a raised eyebrow, and she says, she visits me in my dream. I see her a lot in my dreams, which really just shows, the strong bondage that they had. Second of what I have learned from Mam Dorothy, and in particular her music, was, first of all, the power of her lyric. Hapo Zamani is a strong song. Hamba Nansokolo is a strong song. Dr. Malan is in fact, that album, Impi, is a very strong song. A very strong album. And I was also particularly touched by the simplicity, which also gave an ultimate sophistication to her music. There is a lot of dignity that comes with this music. And then third of, which is my favorite, is the confidence that came with presenting this kind of music. I remember there's a song that Big T, who was the bassist of the Soul Jazzmen, wrote, and that song was titled Bastard. That song was banned because he was referring to the white man as a bastard. He says in the song, you're a bastard, for interrupting this rehearsal or for moving us from this place to the other. And that song was banned. And when my mother recorded that song, when she sang it, she had to say Lendota as opposed to Le Bastard. And when you think about the songs that Mam Dorothy wrote, which was, banned, you think about that. But then one thing that really touches me even now is that the songs from then they are still so relevant today. And I'm so touched that Mama has actually, just touched on the fact that most of us, and I'll say us because we're colleagues, we don't write about what is going on in the country or what is going on in society. And we are faced with a number of socio-economic issues that Mam Dorothy, Mam Miriam, they sang about in those days. And I think we are too scared to address these issues through song.
I remember very well when Mam Dorothy came back into South Africa. I only knew the name from my father, who used to talk about woodpeckers, who used to talk about Elias. Who was this guy? Elias Nkosi. He used to talk about all these musicians that I didn't know. And when I got into Toke House, I just bumped into all of them. From that time, when I then met Mam Dorothy, I became the accompanist. One thing that shocked me when I was directing the music of Sophia Town, it was the drum. When the film was finished, the producers of the film called me and said, "Look, there's a problem. There's a song Pata Pata in that move," and they say now there are some people who are saying they want so much for Pata Pata, and they are quoting the figures that are unreachable. We need to change. The film is finished. They said we need to change the lyrics to those songs because to avoid these guys. I said, but which are these guys? They said, but that's Mam Dorothy's song. They said, no, it's not. I was shocked. I said, no, I know this for a fact because the music, I saw the sleeve from Galo or what it says, it's her song. They said, no, don't start from there. We've spoken to her. She also says, Pata Pata is not her song. I said, what? How can Mam Dorothy do this now? But there was a very technical thing there. I hope you'll understand it, whether you are a musician or not. She recorded a song called Iyoyo, which went, Iyo pata pata, iyo iyo, iyo pata pata, iyo iyo, ngithi ngijonga le pata pata, ngithi ngijonga, which is very different from saguquka satibheka, nansi pata pata, saguquka. Now, it's a very funny one because that song is the birth of the second song you just heard, the one that you know, comes from the first one, which was recorded as Iyo. But because when musicians play the song, they put an intro, they embellish the song. The melody started to take another shift from the original Pata Pata. Now, as you can hear that when I go, Iyo Pata Pata, Iyo, and Sakukuga Satipe, Nancy Pata Pata, these are actually two different melodies now, but which came out about musicians jamming the song. And those guys from Los Angeles who claimed the second Pata Pata, they saw this gap, that this song is no longer like this one. And then they went and registered and put their name on this one. So that's why it was complicated when they said Pata Pata is not Mam Dorothy's song, and I couldn't believe how she agrees on this thing, because she realized the melody had changed.
I wrote a lot of songs, in so much that people like Hugh Masekela, Miriam Makeba, a lot of other youngsters are still singing some of my songs up to today. I have written songs. I used to write songs about the life in the townships, Kauleza, for instance, and that Dr. Malano Nomtoto Nzima, to me, it was questioning. There was nothing wrong in wanting to know why is this happening, but it put me into trouble in so much that I had to leave this country in 1958. Only came back in 1991 when they released Mandela and all that jazz.
Some final thank yous to all my panelists And of course to all of you for coming out tonight, but we're going to make it even more worth your while with the music after the interval. Thank you very, very much.
My name is Derek Beck, and I am originally from Noordgezicht. I grew up there, and I immigrated to Denmark. And I'm back because my father is going to accept, my father is awarded the Lituli Prize. I'm here invited today by a friend who knows Dorothy Masuka and told me that she's a wonderful singer, and I just came here to hear her. She's a wonderful person, very charismatic, and sings beautifully. The evening was very interesting in many ways for me. It's held at the Trevor Huddleston Memorial Hall, and I am so pleased that I have met Father Trevor Huddleston in Sweden in 1990 when the apartheid regime released 7 political prisoners from Robben Island. And during this reception, Trevor Huddleston all of a sudden entered the reception and everybody just stood up. Some were actually crying, very humbled to see him come in, walking on crutches. So it's like a circle for me to stand here today. My father is going to receive the Lituli Award, and I'm at the Trevor Huddleston Memorial Hall. Thank you.
Bekumnandi uba lapha andiqala ukuza and kuba mnandi kakhulu umuntu xa izile. Kumandi uba umuntu omtsha afunde ngenzululwazi nolwazi loba usuka phi enguye engumntu. uDorothy Masuka namhlanje ubuyisele emva, usubuyisele sonke emva, nabaziyo na nabangaziyo, kodwa ubuyisele wonke umuntu emva. Siyabulela ngoko.
I'd been listening to Dorothy Masuka from maybe the early 2000s, late 1990s. And some of the songs that she sang tonight I knew from Miriam Makeba. I was thrilled to hear a Swahili song tonight. And it was beautiful to see the duet of Titi and Mam Dorothy. It brought me to tears.
I was very happy tonight to be here, to enjoy that very privileged moment. Johannesburg is a wonderful city full of history, and it was very nice tonight to be able to link the Johannesburg and South Africa history and with the jazz history in Sophia town, and learn a bit more about what it is, and that's actually where we all come from. So it was a great privilege to experience that, and to me it's by doing that I'm completing my knowledge on Johannesburg and all around Joburg.
For me, it was going back to the memories because I'm French, and I was in South Africa in 1987, Mozambique and South Africa. I'm a former delegate of the Red Cross International, and actually I discovered the jazz in Mozambique.
I think it's important to hear about how singers as griots and how song and lyric has basically become a means of preserving our culture and everything around it.
My name is Kate Ramushu, and I come from Pretoria. I came here especially to see Sis Dorothy Masuka. She's like my sister.
I thought this was great because it combined research components with a performative aspect of it. So it's really nice to see how Mam Dorothy's work has transcended her generation into now being studied scholarly and as well as being revisited in ways that wasn't really done during the heyday of her performance career.